Hello, everyone. My name is Dexter B. Jenkins, and I am the host of Let's Talk Real Estate. Yay! This is where we get together once a month to talk about, well, really, I like to say, answer the important question of how do you become wealthy using this phenomenal tool of real estate. And so I'm so glad that you are able to tune in today. We have a studio audience here at New England Christian Television Network, and so there are a handful of us here tonight. We have a bunch of you who called me and said I couldn't make it, but you would be tuning in right now or later on. And so I'm glad that you guys have tuned in. As you guys know, every month what we do is we bring in some of the finest minds in the real estate to talk about exactly how we use this tool of real estate in order to build wealth for ourselves. And so this month is no different. I have David Lebwith with us. Say that 2 times. Right?
Yeah,
David
I was going to say.
With us. David and I actually spoke together in January at an event.
Yep.
And David is an attorney in the area, and he comes well recommended. A lot of, I tell people I run a RIA, but then I go to one. The one I go to, he is the lawyer for that. And so a lot of the people, the attendees in that meetup, lean on this man for advice. So we're in for a treat tonight. So I just want to say thank to Eddie Jules, who is the owner and operator of this TV station. So thank him for allowing us to come in and use the studio. Yay! So I always say, if you are being blessed by this ministry, you should sow a seed into it. And then also we are doing our event that will pop up on your screen. We can't see it. Mine is not working tonight, but I'm trusting that it's up there. It's the Real Estate Wealth Creation Summit. That is on April 27th. So registration will go live in the next day or so. So you want to make sure you are there. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to David. So David, thank you for coming to the show, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we
Appreciate
talked about
it.
this like back in the last
I know.
year. He's like, man,
long time ago.
Like, where are you going to get me in there? And I was like, well, I had a couple. We had a couple other guests, and then the summertime hits, and we'll do nothing in summer. And then I said, we're back in, and so we're able to get this together. So let's do this. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So look into that camera and introduce yourself. I always believe people can introduce themselves better than I can.
My name is David Lebwith. I'm a real estate attorney, as Dexter said. My office is in Easton, but I still travel everywhere. I'm usually in Leominster once or twice a week, out in Western Mass, Northern Mass, Central Cape, doesn't matter. We go where we need to go. My focus is on residential real estate, both investment and primary residential. I also do a good amount of commercial real estate as well, home development. I represent a bunch of contractors. In a former life, I actually was in-house counsel for a developer. We built about 400 homes in both in Haverhill and down in Walpole. So I'm fairly well versed on the contractor side as well. So that certainly helps when I have clients of mine who want to build or want to flip or want to do things like that. I can speak the language that they need to hear, which gives them a lot more comfort. I've got a lot of experience in contracts, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But in terms of drafting things and knowing the hiccups and the things to avoid, because I've been there, I've patted somebody in the back to make their hiccups go away, but also, gotten them through some tussles. So.
Lumps of your own.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that I like about David when I heard him speak at our other RIA that we go to is his wide range of experiences. So when I talk to people or bring them to our group, I like to have people who not only can run their lanes, whatever it is. So, in your case, it's an attorney, but like you said, you've been in a lot of different arenas.
Yep.
And so, you're not coming sort of with this narrow vision, but you have a lot of different experiences, and so I think that's important. So a lot of the people here, David, are, as I said on our email and out there, they are either just getting started or middle of the road. So think more from a brand newbie's part. So think about what should I be looking for in an attorney? How soon should I get involved with one? So talk a little bit about that.
The first thing that I always tell people, make sure your attorney is a real estate attorney.
Oh God, yeah.
Because we all have friends who have relatives who have family members who is a personal injury lawyer who does some trust and estates work or works in-house for some corporate entity or with the State Department or something, and they don't know what the heck they're doing. So that's something which I always encourage people very much so.
Right.
Make sure you have a real estate attorney. And with you folks getting into the investment side, make sure they have experience as an investment attorney.
Okay.
Because there are plenty of real estate attorneys out there who know how to do a purchase and sale agreement or assist you with a residential closing, but have no clue what an estoppel certificate is, have no clue what you have to do to make sure all the tenants are in place, the rents are paid. There are so many different things that so many lawyers don't know how to do, and they think because, oh, wow, I'm a lawyer, I'm smart, I'll figure it out. Well, you shouldn't be learning on your client's dime and on your client's back. So don't ever hesitate to ask, well, tell me what your experience is. What are the last couple of real estate deals you've done? If they say they've done investment deals, describe them for me. Okay. If they say they've done a wholesale deal, describe it for me. Not that you're looking to find a winner or a loser, but you want to have somebody you're comfortable with their level of intellect with respect to your specific specialty that you're looking into.
Right.
So don't ever hesitate to ask. And if an attorney gives you any kind of flap or hesitation, next.
Wrong person.
There are plenty of us out there, unfortunately. I'm the only one that matters, however. I'm the only one that matters.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there are a lot of lawyers out there who all think they know what the heck they're doing, and more often than not, they don't. There are some really, really good ones out there, a lot of them that we speak at a lot of the different REIA events here who are great. But so try to stick with those kinds of people who know what they're doing, and always ask. The question that Dexter also said is, how early in the process do you find somebody? I'm a firm believer in a team, okay? If it's something that you think you're going to buy and you might like to do this and do it again, hook yourself up with a real estate agent, hook yourself up with a lender, hook yourself up with an attorney. And those are the core people that you want to get along with and understand your passion and desire for what you're doing. And why is that important? It's important because even if it's a deal that you're not working with that broker on or that lender on, you have somebody to talk to.
Right.
You have somebody to ask questions and bounce ideas off. Every time when I speak at the REIA meeting, as a quick introduction of who I am each time, I tell everybody, even if it's a deal I'm not involved in, ask me.
Right.
And the sooner you ask, the sooner you get an answer. And I always tell people, there's no such thing as a stupid question. There are only stupid people who don't ask questions.
Gotcha.
And I don't mean that personally to anybody, but at the end of the day, if you've got a question, ask it.
Right.
We're not, playing marbles here and you're playing for a couple of dollars here. You're talking for
money.
5, 6, 7 figures. Count the zeros at the end. And if you don't think enough of what you're doing, the confidence of the team you've assembled, then don't do it because you're going to lose money. I guarantee you. But if you can get that team together, including the attorney, and I've got plenty of referrals for that, and they've got attorneys for that. Whoever it is, just make sure they're people that you can depend upon, who people are going to answer your phone on a Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
Okay, I get calls. In fact, last Sunday night, I was on the phone from 4 o'clock to 8:30 with 4 different clients. Why? Because they kept calling. And what am I going to do? Put it off to Monday?
Right.
And they were all things that needed to be dealt with
Sunday.
For the most part. One of them, he could have waited till Tuesday, but decided to call me Sunday. But at the end of the day, it's got to be people you can rely upon, okay? And if you don't have that, you're in the wrong boat with those particular people.
Right. Couple things that David said that I want you guys to piggyback on both here as well as out there is, number one, make sure it's a real estate attorney, and not only that, a real estate attorney, but also one who has an experience in investing, because there's just, I won't say it's two different totally ball games, but in many respects, and you know more than I do, it is.
It is.
It's just a different mindset to dealing with. So that's one thing. The number two, and he talked about what we talk about all the time here is your team and the importance of you building a team. I've always said that I believe in the Noah's Ark theory, having two of everything. So just say David's on vacation. He's away with his kids somewhere, and he's in Nova Scotia. Well, he may not call you. He may not can't talk to you on a Sunday night because he's away. And so I think the more that and investing is a team sport.
Yep.
It just is. So you talked about your agent. You talked about your lawyer. You talk about your contract. I mean, you and anytime I look at a real estate transaction, the amount of people who get paid just lets you know, how big of a team sport it is. And so I think, I wanted to just stop him a little bit because I think those 2 points right there and the questions that he had you to ask about, hey, talk to me about your latest transactions, that was phenomenal. And so because understand this, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you because you want it to be a match. And so as I've heard David talk at different meetings, he said, hey, come, let's have a cup of coffee together and see if there's some synergy there, because he and I've never done business together, but, I'm thinking about other people that I've called who were lawyers or attorneys I asked him, hey, I'm thinking about Morgetta, who was here she's back in the last year. She and I have never done business, but I called her and said, hey, look, Morgetta, I got a tenant issue. What should I do? Because that's her specialty. And, and so if you have someone like David or Morgetta or whatever else in your life, it just helps you out. And then they recognize that long term, we will do business eventually.
Exactly.
So.
And that's part of my thing too. I'll help people. I happen to like helping people. That's just the nature of my life, who I am. Yeah. Will I get a client out of it? I hope.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if I don't, I don't. But at least I know I can go to bed that night and somebody had a problem or an issue and I help them give some guidance or direction. And that's important to me. That's important to me.
So you hit on a couple things, and then I'm gonna open up the floor for questions for you guys.
Sure.
You talked about making sure that they're a real estate attorney, and then difference between maybe a retail, I call it retail, maybe what you call retail versus an investor. Mm-hmm. What are some other nuances and things that we should look for as we are talking to attorneys such as yourself, and particularly as from an investor standpoint?
Well, one thing, and again, a lot of it will dovetail once you have the initial conversation. If it's somebody who you think that you can work with and you're asking them to describe your last couple deals, get a sense of how they're describing it. If they're hesitating, if they don't understand, if they look something up, just get a good feeling of who they are and what they are. The other thing I think is very important is says, if I work with you, who am I going to be speaking with? You? I had somebody call me the other day who was a client, and he wanted to refer somebody else to me, and I said, okay, who do they use now? And they use so-and-so. I don't need to mention names. They say use so-and-so, but I've done 2 deals with her. I've never even spoken to her. I've only spoken to her paralegal and a different paralegal on each deal. Now, some lawyers have big offices, God bless them. God bless them. Right. That's not the way I do stuff.
Okay.
I'm very particular. I treat every transaction like it's mine. But enough about me, but you have to be comfortable with the environment you're going into. If you're the kind of person who's going to be not needy per se, but having questions and want to ask things and find stuff out, a paralegal, if that's your primary contact,
might not be the person.
Is not me. It ain't going to be the person because they're not truly experienced, invested in what you want to do, and therefore you want to have the necessary legal experience. Paralegals are awesome. I've got several on my own. They know how to do what they're supposed to do, but you got to go outside that because what you're doing is a lot different. When you sit down with a lawyer, you don't have a deal all wrapped up, tight. You may have an offer, you may have a property you're interested in.
Right.
But then you have to start down the road, and a paralegal is not the person to start down the road with. You got to start down with the person who you're going to battle with. And it's not that it's a fight, but you're protecting your money. Correct. And that's the bottom line. And you want to make sure you got the right experience and the right confident people. As you can probably tell, I'm not very shy. So you want to make sure that whoever you have on your team is somebody who's going to be encouraging you to fight for yourself, but also you have to be able to protect what they have going. It's a lot of money. And face it, people who are just starting out in the real estate world as investors, whatever money they've got saved up, that's probably all they have saved up.
It's precious. It's precious.
And I take that very seriously. I explained as much as I can to my clients about the need to protect. And we'll talk about contracts a little bit, and there's something, the mortgage contingency clause I want to go over in some detail. But you have to make sure that whoever you're working with understands the importance of this for your own good and your own financial protection.
And you said something key because I've experienced this, that I've maybe signed up to talk to a particular lawyer, and I ended up talking more to the paralegal in their office. And sometimes it was cool, but I think there have been times I was frustrated because I couldn't get to the person that I wanted to talk to, and I'm in there talking, and I'm not saying there's some peon or whatever.
No.
But it was like I signed up with you, and I'm talking to
somebody else,
X, Y, and Z. And so I do believe one of the questions, and we have an attorney sitting here with us. She's not a real estate attorney, but she is an attorney.
What kind of practice do you have?
I was doing HR, labor law.
Okay.
So.
I'm doing real estate.
Yeah, she's a mogul now. But anyway, she on the way. But it was this thing of, I felt like it was a bait and switch on some level. So I do believe, as part of our interview process, I should get a sense of how we're going to work together. So you may say, Dave may say, look, I'm going to handle the big stuff, but she's going to be your contact person. Or he's going to be your contact person. And if you ever need to if you really want to talk to me, just let them, or just let me know, hit me up with whatever.
But see, there's the problem with that. And the problem with that is you may think it's important, but the big cheese may not agree.
Gotcha.
And therefore, the big cheese may give the work to the lower level person.
Right.
And when anybody calls me to interview me, I make it very simple. You're dealing with me. That's it. The only time you will deal with one of my paralegals is at the very, very end when they're going to send you how much you got to bring for a check. And the first thing you say is, I didn't think it was that much money. Well, I got to call David. They're not going to, the paralegal's not going to know the ins and outs. They'll know the numbers that they typed into the software, but you have to make sure you've got a relationship with the people to have that going, to be meaningful. Right. Because if somebody says, I had a client meet yesterday afternoon, he couldn't understand why he was getting charged this, and I explained it to him. He says, well, thank you. I said, why are you saying that? Because I asked my broker, she didn't have a clue. Right. Now, the broker was the one who brought me into the deal. Right. And so you got to, and I've been working with this guy for 2 months now, so he understands and trusts my opinion, whereas he knew the broker for 2 years. He's a family friend. All of a sudden, forget you, he's going to deal with me, because I've got that trust and that confidence of a relationship that I have, which is, look, real estate is a people business, 100%. No matter what you want to say about it. 100%. Making money, absolutely. It's all about, we hear all about problem solving. You know, how do I solve your problem? How do I make you a better investor? How do I make you a smarter individual? Right? I don't have to win and say, wow, I've made this person smart. That's not the way it works. It works rather, how do you take that information and make yourself smarter, bigger, and for investment for success, right? So, and I just enjoy the heck out of that.
Yeah. Questions? You guys got questions out there? Razzle now?
Tell me about your most recent commercial real estate deal.
Use that microphone, Jerome.
Yeah, my voice carries.
It does, but it does hear, but the TV doesn't hear you.
Just tell me my voice doesn't carry. Okay. Tell me about your most recent commercial real estate deal and the ins and outs and how you. What? This is just that day, huh? Yeah. Okay. We good now?
There we go.
My voice carries. I had to check with her first.
Yes.
So tell me about your most recent commercial real estate deal, the ins and outs, and then how you help the client navigate that, or high level, not.
I won't get into the weeds. So for me, the word commercial means one of several things. Commercial.
I'm about to define commercial.
You know, it's for commercial, because commercial to me. Well, let me ask you a question. How do you define commercial?
Non-residential.
Okay. See, commercial to me could be a building where it's a whole bunch of apartments. Commercial could be a developer that I'm working. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've got a developer client who bought a house in Dover, nice town. He bought it for $950 and 6 months ago, and he's refinanced. He's taking out a $2.5 million construction loan tomorrow, closing tomorrow to get it out. Now, part of the problems are, I keep telling him I love the guy to death. He's like an older brother to me. Never gets his insurance on time, and I tell him every time, get his insurance on time. So that's one big time issue, and you keep pushing it back to John Brown, who's in our other group. Okay. He's the insurance agent. Okay. But something like that where I had to get him to realize the importance of that particular aspect of it. But as far as the ins and outs of the deal, he's buying a house, he's making the foundation bigger. I've got a buddy of mine who's a zoning expert, so he went through it, made sure it was all zoned correctly, came back to me. We made sure that everything was done, all the documents that I drafted were enforceable, to make sure all that's correct. And then he got his financing through what bank? Mountain One Bank. So, and I worked with them for several weeks, making sure they got all the information they needed, which is really just running the title, making sure everything is clear, and making sure I've got all the loan documents drafted, like 20 different documents, send them in, they edited them, send them back to us. But that's probably the most recent one. I closed a refinance earlier today with a client of mine who's building a La Quinta Inn up in Revere. Yeah, Revere. That was a refinance with private money. So he's got about $3 million on the books right now, and he needs one last blast, and then he's got an SBA loan closing in a couple of months, which will pay off all the private lenders, and they'll be in first position for the rest of the project. So those are some of the commercial deals. Shift over to a deal that was probably about $600,000. I found an email, actually before I got here, I got a call from the real estate broker. The private lender denied the loan. And I'm using that as an example because the private stuff is more on the commercial side, okay? And I think, and the real estate broker thinks that the guy never even looked at it. Never even looked at it. Should have ordered an appraisal a month ago. Never ordered an appraisal. I mean, just rife with problems. So what did we do? As I was sitting in my car before I came in, I gave him a guy down at Bank 5 who I used to buy a client of mine. Actually, my client, the one who has the thing in Saugus, he bought a tire changing shop and a small gas station through Bank 5. So I sent this over to the guy to Bank 5 because my client's buying a rooming house. And so we figured that was more commercial than it was residential.
Right.
And as I was sitting here, I got a big smile on my face before because the guy at Bank 5 is going to do it. So we're able to save that transaction.
So go back to that commercial, because I wouldn't have thought that a house would have been, how was that a commercial?
It's only because it's building it, it's going to rehab it, build it, and then sell it. So again, if you want to talk about commercial, so you can distinguish residential, commercial. Residential is where I live, where you live, right? Maybe a two-family might be residential, but it borders lines on commercial because you have a rental income coming in, right?
Okay.
So my guy is he bought it, he's going to tear it down, he's going to extend it out, and then fix it and sell it for God knows how much money. So to me, that's commercial because the intent is not to live there, but rather to build it and sell it for value and for a profit.
Got it. Yeah, because I would never have considered that a commercial real estate transaction.
But again, that's why I said we need to define what we're talking
exactly,
about. Commercial
exactly,
versus residential.
exactly.
Then you have commercial people who are buying businesses. I got a couple of clients. I got a dry cleaner, a laundromat, and 2 bars and restaurants right now that I'm working on for representing sellers and buyers, transfer liquor licenses and things like that. So, and a lot of it's funny that aspect of life. You get a lot of seller financing.
Okay.
So they're saying to the seller, "Hey, I'm going to buy your business for $200,000-$300,000. I'll pay you half, and will you let me pay you personally
Exactly.
the other half over a year, 2 years at 7 or 8, 9, 10% interest?" So that's another aspect of a commercial financing transaction, which isn't necessarily your cut and dry. 4 squares fits into a box.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Question
Yes, ma'am.
about the SBA.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Hand the mic to Antoinette.
Your voice doesn't carry enough.
I don't know if it's on though.
It's on.
Okay. So the SBA
Yes.
loan that you mentioned, you said they were getting private money and then the SBA loan would kick in after?
Well, yeah. So my client borrowed money. He owned it with an investor, a partner rather, a couple of years, probably about 6 years ago. Then back in 2021, they took out financing to pay back the private people who loaned them the initial money, and they had the money now because that loan was maturing. So now they went to a couple of guys in New York, down on Long Island, and they loaned them $1.5 million to pay that initial acquisition debt off. So now they're stuck with $1.5 million. Now they realize they're going to start building. So then they went and borrowed another $2.5 million from these same 2 guys, and today they just borrowed another $500,000 to make it an even $4 million, whatever that's outstanding. So once that's done, the SBA is going to come in because that's longer term debt. These are only 6 to 12 months of periods of debt, and it's expensive. I mean, they're paying 14% interest on $4 million. A lot of change.
Cheap. Yeah, ain't cheap.
Plus, they're paying 2 points to get into the deal.
Right.
So SBA is going to come in, and then they're going to get a business loan and pay off all this existing $2-3 million in debt, and then they'll be in first position. They'll probably reimburse them back some of the construction costs, and they'll definitely pay off all the other debt, and they'll just pay them on a monthly basis over probably 15 years.
So that's when it's constructed already?
No, they're gonna take it now. So they're in the process. It's going to be a six story building. It's all concrete. So they poured the first 3 floors of concrete, and they're going to start pouring the next 3 next week. Then hopefully by May 1st, that's the plan. They're going to refinance out with the SBA and take them out.
Gotcha.
SBA is a great tool. It's a great tool for small businesses. It's a great tool.
That was good.
Am I good?
Yeah, very good.
So one thing I had mentioned before, and I really want to talk about it. I'm
Vanessa,
sorry.
You had a question, or you were good? No, I'm talking about Vanessa. I thought you're good. Okay, all right. Good.
Writing the notes down.
So when you're signing a contract, a purchase and sale agreement, there's always something called a finance contingency clause or a mortgage contingency clause.
Right.
What does that mean? At its most basic form, I say to Dexter, "Hey, I want to buy your house for $200,000. Dexter says, "What are you, nuts? I am on the market for $275,000. I'm like, "Look, if you let me buy it for $200,000, I'll close you in a month," whereas everybody else wants to close in 2 months. My point, though, is you're negotiating the terms. Right. One of those terms is I say to Dexter, "Hey, you know what? Love the house, but I don't have that money in my bank. I got to borrow it." He says, "Great. Tell me how long a period of time you need to get your loan squared away. But by that time, you need to tell me if you're approved or not. Because if you don't tell me and you're not approved, guess what? The deposits you should put down, wave them goodbye.
Comes to me.
Comes to the seller.
Right.
The seller can't sue you for breach of contract, but rather the courts have held that they can keep the deposit. Why is this important? It's important because that date is the most important date in the entire transaction. Forget the closing date. That's the second most. But you got to get past that finance contingency date. So when you have one, you need to tell your lawyer to calendar that date. I can't tell you how many of those dates I got in my phone. I tell the loan officer, make sure you calendar it as well. And I tell my client, guess what? It's your money. You want to protect your money.
Yeah, right.
If I mess up, okay, I'm not paying it.
Right,
It's still your money, and it's your lender's responsibility too. But you need to babysit that date at least a day or two before. Reach out to your lender. 4 o'clock every day for me is finance contingency check date. And I go onto my phone, I'm like, okay, I got 1, 2, 3, I got to send out emails and find out, do we need more time? Do we need more time?
Okay.
That's just how I work. Right. But you have to be very careful of that date, because that date comes and goes, and you can't close for whatever reason, you don't get your deposit back.
Right. Go back and talk about that again, because I never heard it explained that clearly.
Okay.
So you said that is the first important date, and
That-
the second date is the closing date.
Yes, because if you get past the financing date and you're good, then you close.
Exactly.
But if you can't get past that financing date, you ain't closing.
Right.
So that's the date that you truly have to babysit and make sure that's all set. And your lender may say, oh yeah, your loan's approved. Wait a second. There are 15 conditions that you need to satisfy. Now, you need to look at those with your loan officer and say, can I satisfy those?
Right, exactly.
Because if the one of those conditions that says you got to have $75,000 liquid in your bank at closing, now, you may have it. Some people don't.
Oh, you may not. Oh, you may not.
And you want to know that ahead of time, because every lender wants to see what you have for reserves.
Right.
And how much do you have for reserve? Now, your loan officer should have vetted that out in terms of what your investment accounts are, whatever your savings is, whatever you have. But there's some loan officers that don't really do the best job in the world, just the way there are a lot of lawyers that don't do the best job in the world. But at the end of the day, know that those are things you need to follow up and look at, because it all comes down to you. If you can't satisfy those conditions, you got to kill that deal sooner than later. Because they may love you for your debt and income, they may love the house, but if you don't have enough money saved in order to have reserves, it ain't going to work. But that financing thing is the most important part, and so many lawyers out there don't really care, because they put it on the borrower. There's actually parts of a contract I've seen where the buyer's attorney says, hey, buyer, it's your responsibility. And every time I read that, I'm like, are you kidding me? A lot of these people are first-time home buyers. They don't have a clue what that is. Or first-time investors.
Right.
They don't have a clue.
Right.
So that's really important.
And I was going to ask you to
Yeah, I was just going to go to that. Yep, next thing right now.
Exactly. Yep.
So as an investor and you're getting financing, it's that same concept.
Okay.
If I don't tell you that I can't get my loan by that date, I'm stuck with losing my deposit if I can't close. So whether you're buying a primary residence, a 2-family, 3-family, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. You still have that date if you have a contingency. Now, you got a lot of investors who want to be cute and want to make their offer to their, because really what you're doing is saying to the seller, hey, I want to buy your house. Here's my offer. Here are my terms. What do you think? Except you did it, and you submitted one, and you submitted one, and you submitted one, and you submitted one. And then you said, hey, I'm going to be really smart and cute, because all these other people have to get a mortgage. I know I got to get a mortgage, but I know how good my credit is. I know I'm going to get approved. So you waive your finance contingency. You say, don't worry about it. As soon as you write those checks for the deposits, they're gone. The only way you get them back is if the seller messes up and the seller defaults. So be very careful if you're waiving your finance contingency. A lot of investors do it because they think they're getting the money from a private, whether it's whatever the source is,
Whatever it is, yeah.
but they think that they have to be more competitive in their offer. All right? The other way a lot of investors, and even residential people, the retail folks, is they're waiving their home inspections. Don't be an idiot. I have a deal right now that it's hanging on its thread where this woman is buying a 3-family right across the street from where she lives, and she has another 3-family on the other side of the street, and she wanted to be cute. No finance, she had a finance contingency, she waived her home inspection. Well, the appraiser goes through, and he says, look, I'm no mold inspector, and looking at that porch back there, that thing's ready to fall down.
Not the M word.
And so the lender says, hey, wait a second. You want this amount of money. Your house isn't worth that much. Fix it, then it'll be worth that much. And the seller says, I'm not going to do anything. You buying this house as is. Now, if this buyer did a home inspection or even did one just so she could walk through, have the right to do it, she would have had $1,000 at risk versus $12,000 that she has now. Because with the offer, you give them $1,000 and you decide to walk away. I'm not saying $1,000 isn't a lot of money. It's a hell of a lot better than a bigger thousands of dollars, right?
Not 12.
And so, but she thought she was cute and smarter than everybody. And she has a problem right now because the seller's not fixing anything. And I'm trying to keep this thing together by the skin of my you-know-what. And I may not be successful. because I got a really obstinate seller and I got a really stupid, obstinate buyer. And I said to the buyer, look, they're willing to let you go onto the property and make the repairs, which I don't encourage because now you're improving somebody else's house without owning it. And if the deal dies, you've just spent your time and labor and doing stuff. But that may be your only chance to save this deal because she really wants it because she lives there and she got another investment property.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's being too pig-headed. So she and I are going to have to come to Jewish Jesus tomorrow. That's me. Tomorrow. And we're going to say, this is what we got to do. I don't know if it's going to work, but
Let's try it, right?
I'm going to try.
Wow.
Because I've gone down every road. Yes, ma'am.
That's interesting. It makes me think about relationships, because if the house is directly across the street,
Yep.
she doesn't have a relationship with the owner, because I mean.
Nope.
that-
Nope. She's not a very nice person, so I'm kind of not surprised.
Okay.
You know, and the real estate broker talks and doesn't really talk the right words in terms of saying things he shouldn't say. So I told him today on the phone, I'm like, look, don't speak. Speak about, stay in your lane. Speak about the house, speak about that, but don't talk about what the lender's going to say, what the insurance guys. That's not you. You're awesome at what you do, so do you. Don't do everybody else.
Yeah.
Let everybody else do everybody else. Just do you.
Right.
Problem is, I think he already talked too much and made some promises which are not reasonable. So,
Wow.
But anyway, so as you can see, there's not much I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Every day is something different.
Yeah.
So you asked about my most recent commercial deal. I could talk to you for 2 hours about the last one yesterday, today, the day before.
Got it.
You know,
Got it.
so this is the kind of things where, now I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm originally from New York. Grew up in White Plains, New York. Went to Brooklyn Law School. I am a Yankee fan, so don't hold that against me.
I'm a Yankee fan too.
There you go. So, and what was the point of my story? I forgot what. Oh, so graduated law school in 1989. So I've been practicing up here since end of '93. So I've been doing this for a long time. There's not much. When I say there's not much I haven't seen, there's really not much I haven't seen. Right. So, you know, even if at the end of this meeting tonight, whenever my cards are here, if you have any question, just ask. Hey, I met you at Dexter's meetup meeting. Great, that's fine. And not going to send you a bill. That's the one thing. I always tell people, even after a closing, when we're all done and everybody's happy and smiling, and I say, congratulations, I say, look, I'm your attorney now. If you have a question, ask me. I'm not going to send you a bill. If you have a question about a divorce matter, God forbid, or somebody, whatever, just ask. If I can't do it, I'll tell you, I'll find you somebody who can. Now, you're going to have to pay that bill, but you're not going to get a bill from me for my time. It's all part of the team. It's all part of the concept of being together. I wish more people, it's the golden rule, right? If that was part of the world's intelligence, you realize what a better place we'd have here.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's just the most basic thing. People like me. Why do they like me? Because I return phone calls.
That helps.
I pick up the call. Or I text you, hi, I can't talk right now, I'll call you later. And you know what? I actually call you back.
Right.
A lot of lawyers don't. And look, that's the way they do their stuff. I get it. That's just not how I do my stuff because I want to be called back.
Exactly.
I want to be
that
called.
point, right?
I want to be called back. It's all about communication and relationships.
We'll talk a little. So,
Yeah, sure.
So you talked a little bit about contracts on the side.
Yep.
On a real estate transaction, but when we were in January, somehow we got talking about partnership contracts. Talk a little bit about that because you said some good stuff around that, and I was like, because what I found is that people getting the partnerships. Oh, that's my cousin. And we went to church together, whatever. And just like, but there's no clear.
There's no defined.
Yeah, there's no
roles.
defined role. So talk about that.
So you can. I mean, there are a bunch of different ways to do it. You can have an informal partnership. Hey, I'll kick in 50 grand. You kick in 50 grand, and we'll deal this thing. That's fine, but I don't even suggest that. Put it in writing.
Thank you.
Because if there's any question, at least you have something to fall back on, right? And if you want to get a little bit fancier, you could do what's called a JVA, a joint venture agreement. And if you want to be fancy doing that, don't be stupid. Don't write it yourself. Have a lawyer write it who knows what they're doing. I've got 3 different groups of investors right now. They all have their JVAs. Oh, my Lord. I could have written a better one in 8th grade. And I told each one of them that in every separate conversation.
Right.
I'm like, do you people read this? Well, a lawyer wrote it. I'm like, there's no way. And then they told me the lawyer who supposedly wrote it. I'm like, there is no way in the world
He wrote that.
that this woman
or she
wrote
did,
this.
yes,
There
right.
is no. I know her very well. We refer clients back and forth. There is no way in the world she wrote this. And I could tell because it was cut and pasted. You could see it. It was a lousy job, right? At least make the fake look real. But point is, whatever you're going to do, put it in writing.
Please, yes.
And don't get so crazy out of your head without consulting with a tax person and a real estate person. Because what you're going to commit to come back and bite you in the butt later on a tax liability. And then what are you going to do? You got to pay the man. And you don't have the money because you didn't set it up correctly, right? So always have everything you can possibly in writing and have it reviewed by a neutral third party, a lawyer, an accountant. Those you will get billed for, but wouldn't you rather spend a little bit of money now to make sure it's all done the right way? And if your partner won't do it, then they're not your partner.
Right.
Because two people should be partners who have the same focus and perspective on how to solve a problem or how to attack a problem. And if you're not thinking on the same wavelengths, now there are some people who, the whole yin and yang part of life, I get that, but you got to have that same vision as to how this should be done.
Exactly.
And if you don't, guess somebody else. Guess somebody else. Yeah. But contracts are so important. And again, it can be very informal, but at least it's something which you write down so people know their responsibilities, their expectations, and what's going to happen if it doesn't work. People always laugh at me because I always say, well, what happens if the deal dies? What are you talking about the deal dying for? Because I'm a lawyer. I got to figure out the divorce, not the marriage.
Right.
And I got to anticipate it the best I can. And the more I can ask questions to anticipate, the better suited you are if, God forbid, everything goes south.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So people get angry and frustrated when I keep honing on the negative. Well, I better hone on it now so you're not honing on me in a couple of years. How come you didn't protect me? How come you didn't set this up the right way?
Right.
So to me, that's very, very important.
Yeah. And what I like
Yes.
you said it here too, but in January we talked
Yep.
about the clarity component of who's doing what,
Yep.
so on and so forth.
Yep.
I think is so critical. Because
It's very
what
important.
happens, people catch amnesia, and we get in these deals. Oh well, you said this, and it's too lax, and then now it's your word versus my word. So if we have, like you said, a neutral third party, this is in writing.
Yep.
Now you still may violate it, but at least we got this document that says this is what we agreed to up front.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So back to your joint venture agreement and
yes.
The partnerships.
Yeah.
If you're doing partnerships, how do you start that process?
It started how? And I don't mean to throw it back at you like
that's
that.
okay. I'm a newbie, so
Yep.
I don't.
All right, so let's play this out. So you think you'd like to buy a building or buy something, right? Who are you gonna buy it yourself? Or are you gonna buy it with somebody?
I want to buy it myself, but I would need investors.
Okay,
to come in.
so that's different than a partnership, because a partnership is a partnership. You guys are either equal or some percentage there.
Okay.
As an investor, if you come to me and say, "Hey, David, do you happen to have 50 grand? I need." How much are you going to pay me in interest? But I'm then loaning you the money. I'm now an investor in who you are and what you do.
Right.
A partnership is something really between two people. You can have multiple people if you
So
want.
if you have 50-50, like let's say it's 50.
You should, and you could do a partnership like that, or you could have this thing called a joint venture agreement, which is a little bit more expansive. It's really just a fancier word for a partnership agreement. I mean, that's really all it is. You can call it anything, as long as you have it identified in writing as to who does what. And a lot of the JVAs out there, they try to really identify who's putting the money in, how can they get the money out, who's responsible for this, just like Dexter, outlined all the steps. You do the same thing in a partnership agreement. You can call it no matter what it is. To me, a fruit is fruit is fruit. You have citrus, you have apple, what I'm saying? You can subdivide it a little bit, but for your level of experience and entree into the business, just find somebody you can trust and put that in writing. And then figure out, are they giving you the money to you to do it? And what happens if you don't do it? One of these investment groups that I've got is these people gave money to this woman, and she's been using it to fund other projects.
Right.
It's called a Ponzi scheme. It's illegal. She's this far away from me going to the Attorney General's office. And I don't want to do it because that's not how I'm not a litigator. I make love, not war, right? I don't like that. But if she keeps it up, that's where it's going to go.
Gotcha.
And so you want to make sure that what you got your money in, whoever's the trustee or the custodian of those funds, and you don't need to use a fancy word like that, but that's in essence what you are. You want to make sure that you're using the money for that purpose and that project. And if somebody says, well, you mind if I can just take it because I got to buy some windows, No. You go figure out how to fund that job on that job. This is my job.
Right.
And unfortunately, my investor clients didn't catch on to it till it was a little too late. And stupidly, they invested in multiple deals with this one particular person, and they all had JVAs with them, and it looked like they were written by an idiot. So that was the issue there. But when you are starting out, find out somebody you can trust, Put that team together like we talked about earlier today, and then from that team, you will be able to figure out what to do because we'll put you in the right direction. Because you may find a property and a broker may say, what are you, out of your mind? Walk through this thing. You have a contractor. That roof's going to give you another 2 years. You got an extra 10 grand, 15 grand to replace a roof? You might. If you don't, different type of animal. Stay away from that. Your partner who may be a contractor, your partner who may be the money person, everybody has their different strengths. Just identify what those strengths are going to be when you decide to go into business together. Okay?
Yeah,
I got you.
No, that's extremely important. I mean, the
That was helpful.
Yeah, no. That's why I said David talk about that because the times that I've been pulled into mediation and I start asking questions. She said this. She said. I ain't see no writing. It's she said.
Yep.
They said.
Yep.
The cat said. The dog said. And next thing you know, we got all hell breaking loose because there's no clarity. You know. And
Right.
so when David talked about that in January, I said, "Ooh, that's a nugget. Really getting as clear as you can as possible because." Things go wrong. There is an opportunity that you may lose money here, or life happens, things change, you know, and so being able to have it in writing is as clear as possible is definitely important.
And that'll give you some confidence as well, because first, face it, doing something new is scary. Doing something that you got to take money out of your pocket, that's even scarier.
Yeah.
But if you have something you know that's been written well, that reflects the intention and the expectations that the people have in the deal together, that's going to give you some level of comfort knowing that you've kind of tried to address as many possible bumps as you can because you have this to support yourself. Right. The other thing is too, as I said before, make sure you're working with somebody you trust and you get along. Because if you don't, run. Run.
Fast.
Run. Run. Because otherwise you're going to be running to me.
Yeah.
Too late.
Yeah. So we talked about contracts. Good stuff so far.
Yes.
So talk about getting into wholesaling because that's sort of the low hanging fruit. That's one of the things when people come to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I want to be a wholesaler. Well, what do I do? So talk about that a little bit from a lawyer perspective and
Absolutely.
paperwork and all that sort.
Do you guys, everybody know what wholesaling is? Okay.
Jerome does.
All right. So
This one does.
So basically all wholesaling is that I sign a contract to buy Dexter's house. But you know what? I really don't feel like going through the deal. So I find you. And I take his contract and I assign it to you. I wholesale it to you. And you now are in contract with Dexter. And I get paid a fee in the middle for just being the middleman. That's my wholesale fee. Right. Now, there are a lot of things that really got to come together perfectly for this to happen. And people think that wholesaling is the greatest thing since sliced bread because you don't got to do anything. You got no money in the deal. You just got to meet somebody, make them get married, and you're set. But it ain't that easy. And you got a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. And I got 3 on my desk right now. This guy didn't know what he was doing. And I'm trying to save his behind.
Okay.
And fortunately, he decided to be Mr. Smart, right? And he wanted to make sure he knew that it was a deal. So I wrote Dexter a check from on my client for $500 to hold that deal.
Right.
Well, I didn't have to do that. I could have just put it under contract for $100 or $10.
Right, exactly.
Just something. I didn't have to do $500. Another deal, he did $1,000. I'm like, you out of your mind? And then he went out and found people. Problem is, those people backed out.
Right.
So he couldn't perform. So he's losing his money. And we're trying to fight on 3 different deals. You know, at some point I'm going to say to him, look, it's costing you more money to fight than it is what you're going to be getting back. So really, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the headaches? But with wholesaling is, if you have any desire to do it, when I meet Dexter, and I'm going to then sell it over here. To Jerome, thank you. You knew that I forgot his name, thank you.
I didn't know that, but I knew you'd point to that's
I'm lousy with names. Your voice is not forgettable, though. Thank you. I got you. In any event, when I do that contract and you think you might wholesale it, you have to have a couple things in that contract. You have to have the ability to assign that contract.
Right.
You have to write in there that I have the ability to assign this contract, or you can be fancy and sound like a lawyer and write David Lebwith or assignee, which is a short way of saying the person I'm going to assign it to.
Okay.
That saves you there because if you don't have the right to assign it, you're stuck.
Right.
And when the seller signs that, they're agreeing to your right to assign it.
All right. Okay.
You know,
Yep.
your right to assign it.
Right.
The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you have access rights. Now, almost every contract has access rights, but you want to make sure you tell the seller, transparency, that you want to be able to come in and show contractors and investors. Because if you're just going to go in there with a couple contractors and a couple of investors, seller's going to say, what the heck
What's
are you
going on?
doing?
Yeah,
What's going on?
Yeah.
And this one particular gentleman, he just closed a wholesale deal 2 weeks ago. You know when he told the sellers that he was wholesaling it? 2 days before the closing. I'm like, dude, really? Again, golden rule, transparency. You want to know what's going on.
Right.
These poor people were getting divorced, had to sell the house, and he wasn't taking advantage of anybody. Don't get me wrong. He was just too wet behind the ears to really have the nerve to have the conversation with them because he knew it was a very acrimonious situation. So I get that. At the end of the day, you want somebody's money. He made 10 grand in the deal. It's his wholesale fee. You better step up to the plate and, I don't want to say be a man, but,
No, I was about to say, man up. Man up. Yeah.
you got to. And I understood that he was kind of shy. I get that. But at the end of the day, you're in business now. You're not in college or high school, whatever, saying, okay, let's play role or role play. So you find the buyer, you find the seller, you go into the contract with them. You've got the right to assign it. You've got the right to show access, things like that. And you have the right to market it for sale because you may want to sell it to somebody. Those are the three biggies you got to have in that
That's
contract between me and Dexter.
So recap that. So you got to have 3 things, and because I know Jerome is very interested in wholesaling, and I got some people out there who are watching who are very interested in wholesale. So put the 3 things.
So you got to make sure you've got the right for access to the property, so you can show it to contractors and investors. You want to make sure that you have the right to assign the contract, and you have the right to what's that thing?
I don't know. You're the attorney.
Oh, access. We did access. We did assigning and
Market.
marketing.
And
Thank you. And be able to market it. And market it could be simply as putting on an MLS, multiple listing service. Simple as that. So you want to make sure you've got those rights lined up.
So in question, and do we go to someone like you to get a wholesale contract?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
you can do it as simple as a regular offer to purchase, that I would give him an offer to purchase to buy his home, but make sure those 3 things are included in that offer.
Okay.
And then you would go to contract. And some wholesalers try to assign that offer. They don't even go to contract. I know when I say contract, I mean a purchase and sale agreement, right? I think the way it should be done is you do the offer, then you go to purchase and sale agreement, and everything in that offer, by law, has to get carried into the P&S, by law. And then you try to sell that P&S. You try to market that P&S.
Okay.
And that's where you want to be able to show people to allow to come in. And a lot of wholesalers have a network of people who want to buy from wholesalers because they're fix and flippers themselves. They're looking to buy a deal. You know, maybe they can't find something, and there are other people, that's all they do. Like this one kid, I'll give him a lot of credit. He's on the phone every day, 3-4 hours a day, making phone calls. He'll go by people's neighborhood, leave a sticky on somebody's door. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I want to buy your house. Call me. Guy, it's okay to do that. He just can't talk to people. But that's all. But
That's more training down the line. That's
exactly.
more.
So you then sign that contract with them, and then I find Jerome who wants to take it over.
Right.
So you then have, it's called a wholesale assignment contract. And that's something you better have a lawyer draw up. And there are some that are really good and some that are not so good, okay? And you just want to make sure that it's got all the terms and make sure that buyer knows full well that they are standing in the shoes of the first contract. Because all you're doing is you're not signing a second purchase and sale agreement, it's an assignment contract.
Right.
So I've got rights under this contract, I'm assigning my rights to Jerome, to the buyer that I find, and that person's going to go ahead and buy it. Now, here's the fun part. How does that actual closing take place? You got 2 possible ways.
Yes.
One is what's called a double closing, where I close with him, and then I close with the next person.
Right.
I close with Dexter at 9, I close with the next person at 10. But that means I got to bring closing costs and stuff like that. Here, I got to bring closing costs on the second. So it's expensive.
It's more expensive. Yeah.
The other way to do it is by the assignment contract, and truly be an assignment contract where seller, buyer. I'm nowhere to be found except I got a fee on there.
Right.
Now the problem is a lot of times you don't want that to happen. Why? Because you don't want to seem like you're paying a fee for something, and the seller's going to say, "Wait a second, you're paying that much for it? Why did I get screwed out of that money?
Right.
You're paying $450. I bought it for $400 because I got a $50,000 wholesale fee." Right. So I was going to say, "Wait a second, I'm not. You want to sue me? Sue me for breach of contract. It's worth the $50,000 that I'm giving away."
Right.
So sometimes they want to do the double close. Sometimes you kind of hide the wholesale fee, and that's getting into the weeds right now. Yeah. But just be very understanding that you've got different people here. Not everybody communicates and is transparent.
Right.
You know, you have those 3 things in there to help you get to that next stage. So the person should have a flavor that it's not your regular run-of-the-mill transaction. But face it, a lot of people who are wholesaling are buying it from people who have problems.
Yeah.
Divorces, probates, pending foreclosures, pending bankruptcy, things that they have to get out of, and they don't really
Quickly.
care
Yeah, a lot of
the
times.
method.
Right.
Just get me this amount of money so I can pay this, and if you make more, God bless you.
Right.
And it's the job of you as the investor to keep that focused with that particular seller,
Right.
to make sure they understand they're getting their problem solved.
Right.
Who cares how, as long as it's legally, which is all legal. But that's the issue. And let's go back to what I started in the beginning about your choice of lawyer. If I do 5 wholesale closings in a month, sometimes maybe 3, 4, 5, 90% of them, I got to spend my time educating the other attorney what the heck is going on. Because it's not a very customary source of transaction. It's not. The mere fact that we had to talk about it here and explain it, and you guys had a clue, but the fact that we had to go into detail, it's not like you go to RE/MAX and say, I want to buy a house on Elm Street
Yeah, right.
in Medford. Go find me a house. Okay, great.
right.
Done.
Right.
This is different.
It's a different transaction.
It comes to the
Totally
same end,
Right.
but it's how you get there is a lot different. And people are not familiar with a lot of things, and they're scared, and they think somebody's trying to take advantage, and they think it's illegal.
Yep.
And I can't, again,
Yep.
almost every deal I have to explain. So if you think you're going to start wholesaling, you better make sure your attorney knows what the heck a wholesale deal is and how to understand it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times they don't. And I don't mind, trust me, as you can see, I like to talk too. I don't mind explaining, but it just gets in your nerves after a while when they start giving you attitude because they don't like it because they've never experienced it before. It doesn't mean it's wrong. Expand your horizons. There's a lot of stuff in this world I don't have a clue about.
Right.
But if somebody presents it to me, I'm going to say, okay, that's interesting. Let's learn.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking about your transaction was a double close.
Triple.
Yeah.
Triple?
Close.
Because the person who got it in the foreclosure, they closed, then the wholesaler
Closed,
with
and
the
then you had to close.
foreclosure, and then I closed
Yeah.
with the wholesale. But I had to pay their fee.
Exactly.
The wholesaler didn't pay any fee, so it wasn't,
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
more expensive.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think just people don't. They did a phenomenal job of explaining double closes, and I never heard of triple close, but triple close in this case, wholesaling, because that's sort of the sucky thing you keep. I want to get it. I want to be a wholesaler. I'm just like, well, you have to understand the dynamics of it. It works, but you got to understand some of the nuances of it. And then to your point, which you said earlier, team. I got to have a good team who understands how this works. It works, but you got to have the right people around you to make it work.
And what bothers me about a lot of people who say, I just want a wholesale, is they think it's an easy fix. Because all they hear about is you don't got to put your money down, maybe a couple $100, but they're going to make good money out of it.
Right.
But the problem is, as we all know, nothing that makes money is easy.
No.
You got to work. You can get lucky, but that's luck. That's not skill. You have to create the skill. You create your skill through experience and knowledge.
Right.
How do you get that? With your team that you have around you, but more importantly, actually rolling your sleeves up and start doing it.
Yeah.
But don't think that just because, it sounds chic and fun, that you're going to get it tomorrow. How many times we sit at these meetings in Randolph, and before we start, everybody goes around and says, what do you want to do? Tell us why you're here, who you are. If there are 30 people in that room, I guarantee you 20 of them, I want to wholesale.
Yeah. Easy.
That's it.
Yep.
Now, it's fine to wholesale, don't get me wrong, but you got to be able to diversify your portfolio.
Right.
Fix and flip, buy and holds. I mean, those are the things that will get your cash flow going. The wholesales, you have to work your butt off and get lucky. Because you got to find a seller who's really willing to go into that line with you. Then you got to find a buyer at the other end who's willing to do that same dance. So there's a lot of people that has to happen. And there are companies out there who are, I'm closing one on Friday, where New Westerns, they're a big wholesale company.
huge.
They're buying it from my people. Now, I don't like working with them. That's a whole nother story. But you're smiling because obviously that's who was involved in your deal, right?
They were okay.
The contract that you signed was horrendous.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Was horrendous. Now, you had no choice. They will tell you point blank, you can't change a syllable on this
can't
thing.
tweak this at all.
And I've told my clients, don't even bother giving it to me. Enjoy it.
Because you can't
you
change
can't change it. Now, will I explain some things to them? Yes. But you know what? They're a very successful company. They do something right. And God bless them for doing that. Okay? This is not my cup of tea. Whereas I'm sure I'm not a lot of other people's cups of tea, which is fine. But you really got to understand there's a lot of bullets in that chamber that you can use in the world of real estate. It's not just wholesaling.
Yeah.
And it's going to be easier for you to find something to buy and hold or fix and flip or even, repair it and then figure out what you want to do with it than it is to get that right nugget, to get that wholesale. Because a lot of people don't know how to get the contract that I would be getting with Dexter in my example. Again, people are calling probate people, they're calling, foreclosure, all those different things, lead gen, all that stuff. But you got to get lucky. Now, I'm not saying you're not getting lucky the other ways, because a lot of people don't have somebody calling you, say, hey, I want to sell you my house. Doesn't happen, But get involved in that team. And the other aspect of it, I talked about what kind of lawyer, real estate attorney for investors. You want to make sure you've got a real estate broker who does investments.
Yes.
Because that same broker
God,
you're
that's
calling
important.
to say, hey, go buy me a house on Main Street in Medford, they're not going to have a clue when you say, oh, I want a 3-family. What? Now, just may so happen on Main Street in Medford, there may be a lot of 3-families, so maybe you've already put them in that position.
Right.
But they got to know what rent rolls are, NOI is. I mean, there's a lot of things you got to know.
Right.
And we haven't even talked about landlord-tenant stuff tonight.
Yeah, at all. And it's a question we ain't got time for.
Yes.
But go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, because that's a whole nother discussion.
Net operating
Net
income.
operating income. Yeah.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. It's funny. As you said the words coming out of my mouth, I'm like, no, just say the words. But they just
Net operating income.
But they just rolled off.
Yeah.
I will say, only thing about landlord-tenant stuff is that make sure your leases are in writing. I encourage everybody to take a security deposit. I encourage everybody to take a last month's rent.
That's. I'm hearing a lot of people saying don't do
hold
that.
on.
Oh, go ahead. Please talk about that.
But if the tenant doesn't have both, just take the last month's rent.
Okay.
Security deposit, you have to keep in a separate bank account. It has to accrue interest. You have to tell your tenant every year how much interest they've earned. It's a pain in the butt. As a lawyer, I try to be conservative at the start. That's why when he said, what? I said, well, huh? Don't take the security because it's a pain in the neck. In fact, a lot of people don't have first month's, last month's, and security. If you're paying $2,000 a month, that's a big chunk of change to come up with, right?
$6,000. Yeah.
So, but get a last month's rent. So you have something
Okay.
at the other
On
end.
the other side.
At the other end, all right? And just
No,
know.
no, last month you don't have to.
No.
It's no separate account.
No, well, hold on a second. If you do collect last month's rent, you don't have to keep it in an interest-bearing account, but you have to pay interest on it. It's whatever there's some statutory amount. It's like maybe 2%. It's peanuts.
Okay.
But by law, if you do collect, you don't have to keep it segregated. It's your money. I always tell people when you get a last month's rent, don't spend it. Because when you go to sell the property in X number of years, guess what? You got to give that money to your buyer because they got to be responsible to the tenant when it's their last month. So don't spend it unless you got a lot of cash.
Gotcha.
So again, security deposits are a pain in the neck. But I will tell you this, that when anybody moves in, make sure you have a checklist, a property condition checklist. You can get them online. I can send one to you if you want. And just have them go through the property and mark down, take pictures, take timestamp. Move technology today. You can back up all the information. So you know that, yes, there's a huge chip in the refrigerator right there or the countertop. Make sure they know about it because the landlord's going to put you on the hook for it if you can't prove that it wasn't there already.
Right.
All right? And then when you move out, do the same thing. Hand the keys, get your security deposit back if you got one, and walk through the apartment with them too. It's a pain in the neck. It's an extra step. Do it anyway. Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid.
Well, we are winding down for at least for our TV audience. We got a few of us in here. We can
We keep talking.
kick back
That's fine.
up. Yeah, we can do that. So, David, look in the camera and tell them how they can stay in contact with you. So, social media, phone, whatever the best way to get
The best way to get me is probably my cell phone, 617-686-8028. My email address is dlebwith@lebwithlaw.com. My office is in Easton. You can always stop by and say hi. But those are really the two best ways to go. I'm not a social media guy. My kids don't let me at this point in time. I have an Instagram account. I'm not allowed to use it. So I'll do Facebook, but that's about it. That's just to see what you had for breakfast today. Can you put it on Facebook? I'm kind of curious what you had for breakfast. But no, I mean this with all my sincerity. If you have a question to ask, you want to come and talk, anybody who I speak with in terms, because I do a lot of these, everybody's always entitled to a free consultation. I've done free consultations like 5 and 6 times with people who I know are trying to get a deal done or trying to work towards that because they're very engaged. I don't mind spending my time with that. A, because I like teaching. The other side of it is I know I'm going to get a client out of it at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's worth that investment because I'm just going to schedule at a time when I don't have anything else scheduled. So why not spend the time doing the right thing?
Right.
So
Give it up for David.
thank you,
Well,
guys.
thank
Appreciate
you
it.
guys for tuning in for this month. As we were saying, our event is on April 27th, so that will go live. Hopefully they're putting this up, letting you know what it is. Registration is this week. It's in Canton, 247 VIP, 197 General. I have some of the finest minds. I'm actually going to get David to come speak. That I have to ask you anyway. Anyway, we'll talk about that. But Tommy Jones is coming in from Texas. And I got a guy coming in from Georgia talking about storage units, and I got a couple people talking about mindset stuff. And so last year's event was phenomenal, and this year's is going to be the same. And so I want to make sure you are there. All right, so we are signing off. We will see you guys next month. I don't have next month's guest as of yet, so working on that. But until next time, this has been Dexter B. Jenkins, and we will see you soon. Be blessed. Bye-bye.